let's jump right into it when it comes to navigating educational systems and healthcare. What are two things? So, the first thing will be one thing for choosing a school that you look out for, and the second thing will be choosing a healthcare provider. It could be a hospital, a therapist. So, one thing each that you look out for. So, I'll start to my right and we'll work our way down.
Assignment of research, and secondly, the assignment of advocacy. And the reason is that your child is unique at the end of the day. No matter what the school is providing, you will have to insist that your child gets what they need. I'm choosing they because whatever the gender of that child is. So, what are practical steps?
So we'll get into that. So those two things, I want us to just first respond.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Perfect.
So we have research and advocacy. If you're going to clap for her, please clap well, right? And I love what she said. Your child is unique and you know what you want for that child. Every child's journey is different. So research and advocacy.
Okay, thank you. Yes, research and advocacy. So, for me, coming from the behavior analyst point of view, I would always want to look at for what are socially beneficial to this child. So, you want this child to be able to navigate their immediate environment, and what are the skills they need to do that, right? So, you want this child to be able to communicate. You're looking at severity levels. It depends on the severity levels. That's how you even know the pathway to follow. And you want this child to be able to get potty trained. You are looking at things that are important to this child. And based on that and the severity levels, you would know what pathway to follow. There's what we call the twin pathway. You would know if you're going into the inclusive setting or if you're going into a center. Is based on that, as well as research. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please clap. I love how that builds on that first answer, that it still goes back to knowing what your child wants and what your child is going through, that unique journey before you make that decision on the healthcare or the school or a center, inclusive or mainstream. Thank you very much. And we'll move.
All right, so for me, the first thing that you need to think about as a parent is that what are my goals for my child? If you have not, and I find that that's one of the biggest things. Parents don't have a goal. The minute the child gets diagnosed with whatever the condition, brains shut down. And it becomes about my child has this, and all goals go out the window. So the most important thing I always say, start with a goal in mind. With that goal, you walk backwards to say, what do we then need to do to get us to this goal? Because if you do not have a goal, everything looks like a destination.
Thank you very much. Yes. You know, Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. If you have a goal for that child, like you said, to be potty trained, to be educated, to be able to pursue their dreams, then once you have that goal, you can make the right decisions, whether it's their healthcare or their school. So I'd like to move to you and look at this very popular dichotomy, which is mainstream, an inclusive school that's mainstream, or going to a center where they can get, specialist care. You can just speak, because I'm looking at the time, maybe 2 minutes on it. Yes, and we'll take one more round of questions and then build on that before we open the floor for questions.
All right. So, interestingly, when we started to talk about inclusion, one challenge we had in Nigeria, and I've seen Nigeria because at that point I wasn't even in Lagos, was people started to speak down on centers. But like Susie said, we need to consider your child's needs, severity of the case. What does your child need to learn now to get to the future you want to see? So what centers are they are specific, they are focused on the child, not just the child's needs, but they're like, okay, this case, they want to build the right behavior, prepare the child, pre-vocational skills, pre-academic skills. But when they get into school, the school has expectations. The school is saying, okay, can you sound your letters? Can you do this? So, but then why should there still be mainstreaming, or what should you consider when deciding whether it's a center? Look at your child's readiness for school. Would your child maybe not sit through a lesson, but what's the sitting span like? What's the attention span like? Let me speak from the autism point of view. The first skills we look at in building that we build for an autistic child will be attention, imitation skills. Does your child have imitation skills? Does your child have attention skills? If those two skills are missing, they will struggle in mainstream. But if, for example, you're in an environment that requires that you take your child straight into mainstream, then you want to ask how the school, or what do you do to ensure that in that setting, those skills are still being built before we start sitting span, before we start looking at the academic skills that your child needs to learn to thrive in the schools.
Thank you very much. From the health side of things, some people, when they're looking for healthcare providers, might choose to look on the internet, might choose to speak to people, and someone says, "Oh, I recommend this therapist." But what should you be doing as a parent when you are setting out to look for a healthcare provider, whether it's a therapist, a clinical psychologist? What are those factors beyond just someone advised you or you saw something on the internet?
Thank you for asking that. Okay, thank you for that. So, I hope I don't get into trouble for this though. So, when you're looking for someone to work with your child, right? I know that there are a lot of well-meaning humans on the streets of Lagos that are therapists. I mean, they want to give, they want to do something, which is good, but they do not have the capacity and they are not trained to do what they want to do. So, first things first, you're looking at, I would always say, a behavioral therapist before even a speech therapist. And I would say why. Behavior, especially when it comes to special needs, neurological disorders like autism, ADHD, before we talk of sitting tolerance, that's a behavior. For a child to assess the learning that they are learning in the classroom, they need certain behaviors. Imitation skill is a behavior. And if the child does not have the skills, the child would not even be able to vocalize. Vocalization is speech, right? So even if they can appropriately and functionally point to the door like I want to go out, that's functional speech, right? So you're looking at therapists that are well equipped to do that. You're going online, you're going to the boards, because we all have boards that we're part of. You're going to check the registers on these boards to see the individuals that are there, and you're going to contact one of them. But you're not going to go on the streets of Lagos or based on someone's referral. They may mean well. Teaching is different from therapy. Teaching is different from therapy. It's not about the will. The child does not have a will. It's not about, oh, I'm encouraging you. You can do it. You could say, you can do it, and the child does not get to do it. So the child needs therapeutic, which is treatment. The child needs that. Okay, so that's what you should be thinking of. Thank you.
So you've heard it, and it's a safe space here, right? It's not the streets of Lagos. It's not referral, because every child's journey is different, and it starts with the behavior first. I'd like to move to our next panelist. And there was something you said in your earlier answer, which was about the goals that you have for that child. So knowing that you have health goals and you have educational goals, as a parent, you said something, once you get a diagnosis, you just shut down. So how can a parent, move away from that self-denial, woe is betide me, what did I do, to actually saying, this child deserves to have a life, not just to live with this diagnosis? How can they actively make the right kind of goals for their health, but also their education?
So this is where the place of knowledge and asking the right questions comes in. I always say to parents, The minute you get a diagnosis, I know that it is shocking. Nobody expected this. Uh, if you can, suspend grief for a couple of minutes and ask, so what next? And if you are in Nigeria, unfortunately, sorry, I don't know how to be politically correct, so I'm about to shake a few tables. If you're in Nigeria, unfortunately, and your child has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, for instance, you can unfortunately run into people who will tell you, this one is not going to amount to anything. No, you better go and have another child. Thank you for validating what I said, because I said what I said because I know what I've heard. Now, it's also up to you to choose who you believe. And that's why someone like me decided to become the face of what is possible with cerebral palsy. Because you will hear these things. So it's important to then say, I hear you, but you are not the only voice. So I will find a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion as to what is possible for my child. What next? And then they will say to you, of course, nearly they've told you that the child shouldn't even exist anyway. So they're not even, nobody's going to tell you that your child deserves an education. Because the child that is not even supposed to, come on. So it's going to be up to you to then say, now that I have gotten the multiple opinions, can I collect like terms? I'm serious, this becomes a research matter. You actually write down everything everybody has told you is possible, and you collect like terms, and you basically say, okay, so what do I need? Everybody has said therapy, for instance. Everywhere you've gone, everybody has said your child needs therapy. What is therapy? I've never heard of therapy before. What does it mean? What kinds of therapy? Who are the people that provide these therapists? And like she said, please, you are not going to be picking therapists off Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups and the streets of Lagos. There is something called the Medical Rehabilitation and Therapists Board that certifies physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and speech therapists in this country. They have a website. I beg you, by the mercies of God, make sure that the people that you are engaging to work with your children are actually certified therapists. I say this because in conditions like cerebral palsy, we are not just talking about regressions. We're talking about children sustaining fractures and children dying from actually having the wrong therapists. So it is important, as we're setting these goals, I want my child to, so you've set your goal, all these therapists, okay, I want my child to talk, I want my child to walk, I want my child to this. But let me say this. Your goals need to run concurrently. My parents used to say something. Education will not stop for therapy. Because in these neurological conditions, you and I know that they are lifelong. They are not going anywhere. So you cannot suspend the rest of your child's life because of therapy. Everything has to work concurrently. As your child is getting the therapies that you have decided they need, whatever you have decided is their educational pathway, be it you decide, you want them to go to a center, you want them to go to a mainstream school, you need to start it concurrently. You can't say, I'm waiting until they talk. I'm waiting until they sit. I'm waiting until they walk. Excuse you, what if they never walk?
So it has to be concurrent.
It has to be concurrent.
I love that.
Thank you.
Education and health. So we'll just have one more round of questioning and then we'll open it up to the audience. So I want us to be very practical. You go into a center or you go into a school and you're looking. What are you looking for? What are you looking out for? What kind of questions should you be asking? So let's just scenario play, 2 minutes each. In a center, 2 minutes in an inclusive school.
All right, so first, I wanted to mention something, that speech is not a prerequisite for education, by the way.
Thank you.
So the fact that a child is not talking does not mean that they cannot be in even a mainstream school.
Thank you.
As long as the school and yourself can provide the accommodation that the child needs to thrive. Having said that, what should we be looking out for? Let me speak from mainstream perspective. Although, to be honest, I have both experiences. I started my career in Patrick Speech and Languages Center. But in a mainstream school, you want to ask questions about the service they want to provide for your child first, then the training their teachers have. Some schools do something where a teacher has worked, you say, this teacher has, we are going to put your child in the class, that teacher has worked with 15. I'm speaking from autism perspective because that's where I've worked, right? They've worked with 15 autistic children in their 15 years or 5 years of work. If you meet 15 children with autism, you have met 15 autistic individuals, separate individuals. They are distinct. So the fact that this person has, so that, for them saying one teacher can do it is not what you need. You may need, now let me speak to the Nigerian. I know my supervisor is going to have my neck for this because she's always saying what should obtain. But we'll look at what obtains in Nigeria. That's why I said advocacy. So your research includes first understanding your own child. What does your child need? The second thing is you want to look at distance. Your child cannot be on the mainland and go all the way to Lekki to go and school. So what are the nearest schools around me that look like first can provide this service? And you now start to go around and you're asking things like, what SEN services do they provide? Schools have SEN policies, and sometimes their policy will state exactly what kind of children with special needs that they would take into their schools. So does that school have that in their plan? Like, do they have that policy that says, oh, they provide? Because some schools will have 20 children in a classroom, that's what they want to do. Another school will tell you that they have 10 children in a classroom. What does your child need? Will your child thrive in a 20 children in a classroom class? Those are questions you're also going to ask. Do they have an SEN department? Do they allow, for example, this one, people have my neck for it, do they allow external service providers? If they do, what support would the school give, or what regulation?
I think that goes back to the SEM policy in place.
Yes, what regulation does the school have for those external service providers and all of that? So you are then asking those questions, and of course, the teachers, are they trained? The whole school, is it trained? Do they have, what kind of experience do they have with working with children with special needs? What kind of special needs have they worked with before? They've done dyslexia, they've not done autism. All right, because you have a heart for it, I will now comment. That comes the advocacy part. You say, okay, I want my child to get this service.
We'll
this
come
school,
back to
how
that.
because that's
So
practicality.
yes, we'll
If
have questions.
you then say my child needs to have this number of arts relationship or something, you will now help, because you are supporting the school. In Nigeria, everybody, all of us, we are learning along the way. Some schools have done exceptionally well. Sometimes the school you will find is that school that will partner with you to give your child what your child needs. But if you don't know what your child needs, if you don't have the goal for your child, that school you will just leave your child hanging.
Thank you. And I love how it still comes back to the parent knowing what they want. Everybody has echoed this, the severity, but also having goals and knowing what that child can do. I know people have questions, and that's why I just want us to have enough time to take their questions. So very quickly, I would like us to go back to, walking into maybe a health institution, for example. You've gone online, you found, the therapists, you found the hospitals. What should you be looking out for? She has spoken from the education standpoint. I'd like to hear from you from the health point.
All right, thank you. I was going to build on that as well, but let me answer yours first. So when you get to a center, a clinical setting, for example, of course, you've done your research and you know that they are certified, right? It's not just the boss. That is all the bosses that are certified. You want to be sure that the therapist that is working with your child has the right certifications to work with your child. But as a parent, really, we set goals. The first thing you're doing, aside managing your expectations, which should be in your goal setting, because you wouldn't just want someone that's not talking yet to start vocalizing in 6 months, because some parents have those expectations, right? Parents, be very open to feeling the environment. Mothers are quite intuitive. So when you get to an environment, what's the ethos of that environment? is this an environment where my child would thrive? I would use autism as an example. Autistic individuals could be parallel learners. They are children that they could learn very fast, as well as they're quite focused on certain things. Is this an environment where they would want them to do things that they are not really interested in? How do these people relate with the children? I would want to go to an environment where it's play based. Play. Where the kids are not looking at it like, oh, it's work. This is therapy. I'm coming for therapy all the time. Where it is child led, like a natural learning environment. You want to look at that. Because of plateauing, where there's something we call when a learner has learned certain skills, the center is not really about teaching the child 1, 2, 3, maths or English. What the center is about is giving them the skills that will give them access to the teachings the teacher is teaching. The skills that gives them the access. So what are those skills? The sitting tolerance, being able to thrive with other children, taking turns in the classroom, sitting down for circle time. Those are the skills you want to give this child. So are these therapists equipped when this child stops learning? Will they be able to go to the graph and say, oh, strategically, let's analyze this treatment plan? It's deep. So you want to look at centers that can do that. They are not just speaking, and they are not just giving you words, but they are visually, like using graphs to visually represent progress that you can see and that cuts across all environments. That's generalized. So it's not only at the center they can do this. You see some children, oh, they did it at the center and they don't do it at home. No, that skill has not been mastered.
Yes.
You want them to master skills across all settings. Well, if they can do it at home, they should be able to do it on the playground, in church, in mosques. They should be able to do it, all right? So you're looking at centers that can deliver that. Talk to the therapists. Feel their aura.
It's so important. The ethos, doing your research and, looking out for that level of experience and expertise. We only have about just over 16 minutes, and I want to take at least maybe 3 questions. So I'll take the first 3 that put up their hands. Okay. So we'll start with the gentleman. And then we'll have the lady and the lady. But before we take the questions, I have one more question for my panelist. So I just wanted to get my 3 questions because we have just about 16 minutes. And my last question has to do with cerebral palsy, because the first 2 answers looked a lot on autism. So I want you to contribute from that perspective of cerebral palsy. And I love how you said sometimes it's a life or death thing, because the child can get injured and actually die if you don't have the proper health care. So please just pause. You know yourselves, the 3 of you. You keep your questions very brief, but I'd like my third panelist to have a chance to respond.
Okay, so you want me to respond to what you need to look for in a school and what you need to look for in a healthcare provider?
From a cerebral palsy.
So, for a child with cerebral palsy, one of the first things you look for in a school is a school that is accepting. And the reason is this. Unlike autism, cerebral palsy is very physical. So the child looks different. You see, a child with autism doesn't look different from other children at the beginning. So they can totally not even know when child's coming in. But the first thing you're looking for, one of the easiest ways to eliminate schools is once you can see the disdain at the door. I always tell parents, schools are not doing you favors, they are providing you a service. So if a school is providing you a service with disdain, why are you using your money to pay for disdain? So if a school is not accepting from the door, move on. And the thing is this, unlike autism, where there are all of the certifications and all of the trainings and all of the this and all of the that. That doesn't really exist in the cerebral palsy community. Because, like Adelola said, if you've met 20 children with cerebral palsy, you've seen 20 ways that cerebral palsy can manifest. Every single child with cerebral palsy shows up with a different flavor. So, therefore, you are looking for a school that is willing to meet your child where they are and learn along the way to take them to where they need to be. Because the truth is, for a child with cerebral palsy, you're not, most of the time you're not dealing with attention issues. Most of the time we're not even moving. Don't worry, we're where you put us. So there's no attention issue. We're sitting down. Most of the time we're memorizing everything you are saying, even if we're non-verbal. So a lot of the times, the prerequisite skills for learning are there. But it takes somebody who is willing to see beyond what you look like physically to be able to work with your child and pull out what already exists. And that's what you're looking for.
Yes.
And for your healthcare providers, let me repeat. Make sure, I'm begging because I have lost children to this nonsense. I have seen children have fractures that take years to heal because somebody hired some quack that's parading himself on Facebook as a physiotherapist. There is the Medical Rehabilitation and Therapists Board that licenses physical, occupational, and speech therapists in this country. Make sure that your therapist is licensed by this body before you hire them. Don't use your money to buy additional problems. Thank you very much.
Don't use your money to buy additional problems. We only have 12 and a half minutes, so very quickly the microphone will get to the audience and we can, okay, great. Your name and your question. Please keep it brief so we can take all three questions at the same time and we'll have a chance for our panelists to respond and we close it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bolodeoku, and I'm an educational psychologist. My question, if I'm be very, very brief, I would like you to advise regarding parents who, whenever they employ the services of specialists or therapists to work with their children, tend to resign the fate of their child to those therapists. So you have cases where they believe because they've hired this person, they don't have any part to play anymore. And then, very briefly, also for things that appear superficially simple, things like screen time, for example, you have parents who use that as an escape route and have their children resigned to using the screen for longer than it's advised. And there are many researches that show that this is actually a big problem. Please, I'd like you to speak in that regard.
Thank you. Very important questions. Please, can we have the mic go to the second person?
Yes, I'm Glory Moisili. My question is this: what is the relationship or what role does the Montessori apparatus play in treating these special needs children? 1, 2. I'm here very intentional because I just started a journey. I've been a Montessori teacher and I also head a center, but I feel that I'm exhausted. I just need to start something new. And I'm just picking interest in this special educational needs of children. So I really need a guidance to do it properly. So that's the second question.
Okay, thank you very much. And our final question.
Okay, I'm in Ajayi, and my first question is it possible to also be a teacher and a therapist at the same time? And my second question is, what's the difference between a school and center? And do kids graduate from centers just the way kids graduate from schools? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, you can choose the questions to respond to.
That's hard. I feel like I can answer all. So let me start with yours centers are specifically tailored to meet the needs of individuals with special needs and oftentimes specific needs. So you hear she runs an ABA center. They use the applied behavior analysis, science of behavior to work with individuals with special needs. And they've mentioned the quizzes, right? But schools, right? But children graduate from centers. Centers are designed to graduate children to different levels. So some will move into mainstream schools. Some, and a very good center would oftentimes have a plan for what they call transition. What's the next step? So now we're teaching, this child is 2, 3 years old. What's the next step? Is the next step school? If the next step is not mainstream school, what's the plan? So is this child going to learn the vocational skill? So as I mentioned earlier, that they have pre-vocational skills and pre-academic skills. Interestingly, they are intertwined, because even if you work in early childhood education, your children are learning pre-vocational skills like all those bidding, fine motor skills, and all of that. So there must be a plan for transition. It's planned by both the center and other stakeholders in the child's life, and in particular the child, looking at the child's strength. And if the child can communicate in whatever way their own strength or what they want, that child plays a part in it.
Can a therapist and a teacher, like someone be
If you
two
are a
things,
teacher and you want, I started off my career as a teacher. However, I wanted to work with children with special needs, so I got trained in it. Trained and got licensed. Now I'm trained to be licensed QASPS in the ABA, right? So you can start off as a teacher. You can be a teacher and say, okay, no, I want to help. I want to do therapy, actually. Then you get the training and the license for that. And Montessori, and the same thing applies to you. Montessori is not therapy. Montessori is teaching. While it can be effective in teaching children with special needs, it is not the ultimate. So if you really want to help these children, you want to get trained in specifics. I won't answer the next question so that I can say this. See, when we say special needs, it's a broad term. Autism, CP, ADHD are not the only conditions that fall into that. There are many other conditions. We have the Dynalimp. I saw their video. Children with limb loss, they also fall in this. So sometimes, even if you are here, you're in this room, your interest is not autism. Whatever it is that is your interest, do the research and say, what is the training and the license that I require to function? Somebody asked me once, I said there's FSOT in Nigeria, in Lagos State. That's the School for Occupational Therapy. If that's where you will go and train, because the service you want to provide is not ABA. The service you want to provide is not teaching. However, by the time you describe it, sounds like occupational therapy. Go and do that diploma, get licensed to meet the needs of the children that your heart is beating for.
Thank you very much. Would you like to respond? Okay.
I just wanted to jump on the first question about parents who abdicate responsibility to the therapist. So there are two sides to this thing. One thing that I have found with a lot of therapists is that, believe it or not, a lot of therapists use jargon to confuse parents. And so when the parent does not even understand what you are saying, what would they do? If you don't understand what the person is saying, would you leave the person to do it? So if you want the parents to be on board, you need to be able to explain it to them like they are 2 years old. If you can't, then you still don't know your job. And that is the biggest problem that I have seen with therapists. Even when we're working with physiotherapists, you're doing the routine. A parent is asking you, so this thing you are doing, what is it supposed to do? You can't explain. Excuse me, you don't know your job. So how do you expect that parent to step up and follow you if they don't even understand what you are doing? That's the first thing. If you've simplified it enough and you've made it hands-on so that parents can do it, and they don't do it, then we will know that parents are lazy. Because yes, there are parents that just won't do. But half the time it's because we've bamboozled them with jargons. The other thing with screen time is that whether you like it or not, there's parental burnout. Okay? If you have ever been a parent of a child with special needs, you will understand that, look, sometimes it is putting that child in front of that tab for 2 hours that will help that parent get a nap. So the truth is, it's easy for us to say, oh, these parents are not doing what they're supposed to do. Realistically, is it easy to sit with this child for 24 hours in a day? So if it is that, we are going to work it into, again, it goes back to you explaining to the parent what they need to do, and then looking at their schedule and saying what works. How do we eliminate screen time? If it's that we know that at home this child is going to get 2 hours of screen time so that you can cook dinner, maybe that means we have eliminated screen time in school or in the center, so that when he gets those 2 hours at home while you are cooking dinner, that's the screen time allotment for the day. We all have to be working together and not throwing blamed.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to add to that the collaboration thing. If you're right, the jargon is really is a thing. Is a thing. So if every day you communicate with your parents, right, and you tell your parents the steps, and really that's why I like ABA, applied behavior analysis is very open. You see the steps. You tell the parent that okay, right now we are doing screen time, right? We're trying to reduce screen time. And the parents understands the steps. The parents follow through because at the end of the day, the parents want what's best for their child. You cannot love the child more than their parents. And I know that I started off as a teacher as well. Teachers, wise, were very empathetic and very kind. We could be very judgmental. We don't stay with these children 24 hours. These parents, they live with their children and they really want what's best for their children, right? So please, let's be open-minded and let's try to help. Let's have the mindset of we are willing to even help and meet the parents, all right? And as for Montessori method of teaching, I've found that with individuals, ADHD and autistic individuals that I work with, it could be quite distracting for them. It doesn't work for it's a teaching method. It doesn't work for every child. So it is it's not therapy in any way. Okay? As for the center and the difference between the center and a school setting. Okay, the school first and foremost is teaching academic skills. That's their core function, right? They aside the other skills you will get, the pastoral and all the other things you will get. First and foremost is you're going there to learn maths, English. The center has no business with maths and English. So any therapist that is coming to your home and doing counting and reading, and that's not therapy. That they're just teaching. And the child does not even have it in their repertoire to understand what you're teaching yet. Therapy is helping the child. You're looking at the motor skills. You're looking at the communication domain. You're looking at the emotional domain. You're looking at different domains that would help the child have access to the teaching. A child that does not respond to their name, you call them, they can't respond to their name, but they can respond to a verb. You say, John. John wouldn't respond, but you say, John, take. John would take. And you're wondering, but he hears me. He hears me. That is a very specific treatment in ABA. Very specific because the part of the brain that would make them recognize their name, they don't have the capacity to do that yet. So you have to teach that. A teacher cannot do that. So, there is a clear difference. Center is therapeutic. Teaching, school is teaching. And do they transition? Absolutely, yes. They do transition to schools, to mainstream schools. Remember, they are there to learn, acquire skills that will give them access. So when they have this skill, there's this assessment we do. We call it school readiness. Yeah. School readiness assessment. And when they are able to function and have access in the classroom setting, why not? If they need extra support, fantastic. Facilitators, I say no to them. I'm sorry. A facilitator is not a therapist. A facilitator is like a shadow telling the child, do this, do that. You don't want... Yes, some children do need that, but for how long would they need that? A therapist is supposed to gradually phase themselves off the setting. So how long?
That will depend on which special needs.
Yes, the severity level.
Severity and the type
severity
of
level. And then when we're looking at severity
we have only
level,
about 30 seconds.
And then when we're looking at severity levels, then should the child be in the classroom setting in the first place? Should you be thinking of transitioning the child if the child is not getting any benefits in the classroom?
We need to redefine what we mean by benefits.
I think there are so many important points that have been raised, and sadly we're out of time. But the good thing is that the next item on the agenda is lunch, so you can get to network. And I beg if you can stay behind so that those questions you might not have had the chance to ask, you'll be able to engage with them. Please, can we give our panelists a warm round of applause?